Hi, I'm Coach Dan Gordon, and welcome to my podcast for badass entrepreneurs only. If you're an entrepreneur who loves hitting it hard, growing your business, and learning from billionaires how to succeed, then you are clearly badass and you are going to love my show. But if you just want to take life slow and easy, you aren't badass, don't even bother listening. For the rest of you, strap in, for Badass Entrepreneurs Only is taking off now. Hi, I'm Coach Dan Gordon, and today I'm talking with Brehnen Knight, the entrepreneur's entrepreneur. My guests usually have one radical accomplishment to discuss, but Brehnen has two. With his company Engage Youth, he has cracked the code on reaching the extremely lucrative but mystifying youth market. And with his newest venture, Fanspiration, Brehnen shows clients what already inspires their following and how to connect with them in a more profound way. If you want to know how to fire up your social media audience, Brehnen Knight will give us all the answers. But before we get there, know this. Right now, in this moment, you have the power to live your life unlimited. For Badass Entrepreneurs Only can show you the way. Today, I promise to open your mind, to set your thinking on fire, to pull back the curtain on your world and show you what you're truly capable of achieving. Come with me and enter a new reality of infinite success. The doors are locked. The stage is set. It's time to get badass. Ready? Let's go. Most of the struggles we face in life and business are based on nothing more than a story we tell ourselves. Now, that's a harsh truth to admit because we create a lot of evidence that these struggles are a lot more than just a story in our minds. The fears are very real. And the idea of failing and losing everything is soul-crushing. Aren't these more than just stories? No. See, your brain is designed to keep you from doing things that cause pain and discomfort. So when you think of taking a risk that could lead to failure, it sets off bells, buzzers, and alarms in your brain telling you not to do it. If you've ever said to yourself, oh yeah, I'm going to launch that business just as soon as I feel ready, what you're really saying is, I want to take a big risk, but I don't want to feel afraid. Well, that's never going to happen. If you wait till you feel ready to do anything, you'll never accomplish anything. Your first job as an entrepreneur is not to wait till you're not afraid, but to move forward, no matter how fearful you feel. So, how the hell do you do that? Well, when I was in this same predicament, I developed these 3 questions to ask myself that help unstick me. Ask yourself these 3 questions in this order. Question 1. Am I in any danger right now? Look around. Is someone holding a gun on you? Are you being threatened in any way? Or is the world just sort of going on around you? Am I in any danger right now? If the answer is no, move to question 2. Is it very likely that the thing I'm worried about will actually happen? Do you really think you'll lose all your money and fail so hard you'll never recover? Come on. Is it very likely that the thing I'm worried about will actually happen? If the answer is no, go to question 3. Am I better off imagining how everything can go wrong or imagining how everything can go right? Sure, you could fail miserably, but you could also succeed massively. So use your imagination to help yourself rather than scare yourself. Am I better off imagining how everything can go wrong or how everything will go right? These 3 questions have helped me and hundreds of other people move through the scary parts of entrepreneurship. Try them out. I know they can help you too. If this sounds compelling to you, I'd like to help you begin. I want to send you a free copy of my book, Jumping the Gap, Kill Your Story and Take Action. Just text the word GAP to my personal cell phone, 213-409-8366. Text the word GAP, G-A-P, to my cell phone, 213-409-8366. This book will help you on your very first steps in living an extraordinary life. Once again, text the word GAP to my personal cell phone, 213-409-8366, and get a free copy of my book, Jumping the Gap, Kill Your Story, and Take Action. So, Let me introduce my guest, Brehnen Knight. With his company, Engage Youth, he is an expert at reaching the challenging but infinitely lucrative youth market. Brehnen is the Obi-Wan Kenobi of connecting brands to this market and ever knowing which droids the kids are looking for. But that's not all. Because what I'm really pumped about is Brehnen's newest venture called Fanspiration. Fanspiration identifies the interests and passions of your social media following, so you can talk about those things and connect with your fans in a deeper way. Brehnen has cracked that code on peering into the minds of your market, and he's going to tell us how Fanspiration works. This is a game changer. Brehnen has dual MBA degrees in international marketing and operational management. He worked for a decade at Sprint Telecom, where he was in charge of a $25 million sales and marketing budget. Then in 2011, he launched Knight Management, a phenomenally successful business consulting firm in San Diego. But success wasn't enough, and Brehnen said, let's do something really difficult and crack the youth market. And in 2018, Engage Youth was born. Now, with Fanspiration, Brehnen finds success joyfully, disrupting markets in exciting ways that attract large brands. Brehnen Knight, welcome, welcome, welcome to Badass Entrepreneurs Only.
Thanks.
I'm just
here.
I'm so excited to have you.
A lot to live up to, but I'm doing my best.
So, is it okay if we just jump right in?
Go for it.
Okay, great. Because there's a lot I want to cover. You have this really cool term that I love called the lemonade stand moment. Would you describe what the lemonade stand moment is?
Well, everybody has their own opinion about entrepreneurs. And I think that you either have it or you don't. You're either born with it or you're not. You can learn techniques. You can follow people. But if you don't have a drive to have your own business, it's really hard to sort of unwire yourself. I think it's possible. But a lemonade stand moment for me is the realization that everything that I want to do really sits on my shoulders as opposed to working with somebody else. I'm just not wired that way. My lemonade stand moment is I need to do this for myself. Okay. So it's like you're a kid and you're like, rather than, mowing lawns and doing that kind of thing to earn money, I'm just going to start my own little lemonade stand. Is that fair? Yes.
And, I think you touched on something really important. Like you said, either you have it or you don't. What is having it?
I think that's a combination question. But at the end of the day, do you feel confident enough of who you are and the ideas that you have that that's something that you can put yourself out there and make a living doing? And I was working with the MBA program at a major university here, and they wanted me to run their entrepreneurship program for these MBA students who were simply just book-learned folks. And But I'm going to hire the guy that's on the street, right? I'm going to hire the guy that invented something or driven something or has some business and he wants me to take it to the next level. That's the guy I want to work with. I don't want to work with the guy that has some sort of theory about whether it's going to work or not.
It's an interesting point because I find that some people do these, like a risk assessment analysis, which, is a normal thing to do in a business. But why aren't there like success analysis?
That's a really good question. I think when you see a successful entrepreneur, you don't see what they've gone through to get there. You see the final product or a final product, and try to assign an assessment. An entrepreneur's, it's pretty tough because, you're given the test and then you're taught the lesson. And it's really about somebody who is confident enough that they believe in who they are and that they can be successful, but it's also a little bit of luck, right? And it's a little bit of hard work and you read the books and you see these people that are super successful. You don't see the 15 things that they ran into a wall about. I think that's the goal. And I really appreciate this program because I think that's, you really call that in attention. You call that out as saying, listen, good on you for doing this, but there's a lot of things that, the hurdles that you need to overcome. And if you embrace it after knowing all that, then you're going to be very successful. So.
One of the things I tell my clients a lot is the first time I went skydiving, you can't know if your chute's going to open before you get out of the plane, right? You have to make that jump first. And I think that it hasn't been all a bed of roses for you. You know, you've had your successes, you've had your, what you might call failures or setbacks. But what do you think is your resiliency that keeps you like, all right, that quite didn't work out, I'm going to continue? Like, how do you do that?
Boy, I tell you, if you talk to every entrepreneur, they probably have a different answer.
I know, but like, how do you do
it? There's going to be some stubbornness there. There's going to be some arrogance there. There's going to be some, if you can't learn from your mistakes, then you're going to be in a lot of trouble, right? So you call on experiences that you've had with either peers or what you consider mentors. And you go through some tough moments. It's such a cliche, but it really is true that those are the things that define you and shape you and make you successful. I mean, if everybody could see that that wasn't a failure, but really a learning opportunity and be able to do it a little bit better next time, if you can do that, then you'll win the day at the end. You may not win the battle, but you'll win the war.
Yeah. And I mean, there's a reason it's a cliche because, you say it over and over again. That's how it becomes a cliche. You don't say it over and over if it's not true. So it does make a world of sense. To talk about fortitude, when you were in grad school, you launched a business that came out of an errand of mercy for your family. You had a relative who was ill, and your grandfather asked you for help in navigating this confusing world of elderly care. And yes, less than a year later, you turned this errand of mercy into a really successful business. And again, like, you're doing this while you're in grad school. So like, how did this happen? How did this come about?
It just became clear to me, I was the incident you're talking about with my grandparents, they live up in Portland, Oregon, and I was in Santa Monica. Mm-hmm. It became really clear to me that I wasn't going to be able to manage from Portland and that my priorities were with the family. And so, it's time to pivot. You've seen those shows, gosh, what the heck is it called? It's where the guy's like a billionaire and they take all his money away and they put him in some, strange city and they say,
Glenn Stearns. Yeah. I mean, he was literally a guest on my show. Yeah. Undercover Billionaire.
That's a beautiful concept.
Oh, it's great.
But the journey was really fascinating, right? In the end of the day, what he really did was he successfully got a whole bunch of people to believe in him. Right. And those people that really believed in him stuck with it, and of course, are ultimately rewarded. So it's just a good look at it. It's a drive. It's who you are. And the formula gets to get rewritten.
Okay, but going back to your grandfather, like, you're helping him out, you're navigating this elder care world, and then like suddenly it's like, hey, I can turn this into a business. Like, how does that happen?
I think it's natural for people to just sort of start businesses based on some familiarity or some need, and that they're not just totally random. If it's just out of the blue, it's probably a franchise or something that you hadn't really thought about. But you have to have some experiences. You have to have identify some problem. I have a good friend who he had an auto repair place. And all he realized was all the tools he didn't have that he really needed to fix specific cars. So he launched a tool manufacturing company, which is wildly successful now because he was in it. He was in the system. He understood the problem. So he went out and identified a problem, and he went out and he fixed it. So
you saw what was there and what you were doing, and you said, hey, there's a space here to help other people and to launch this as a business. I think that's key in, if I were to deconstruct your success, I would say that you're super interested and super curious about the things that are being underserved. And you see that as an opportunity rather than a frustration. Would that be fair?
Yeah, I mean, there's absolutely an altruistic component to what I do. And, when you talk about engaged youth, I didn't want to be another light bulb on the Vegas Strip.
Yeah.
I had an advertising agency, and it didn't seem like that was going to be a standout to me, where if I'm specifically attacking the problem, which is that youth change their mind on a regular basis, and whatever they think is authentic or real isn't something that you and I can figure out given our demographic and age. And so you have to engage them to do that. It's really hard for agencies to do that, and it's even much harder for a brand to do that. So hence the reason why I engaged. For that same reason, that I saw a problem, I figured this would be a really good solution to it, and then it's just about evangelizing that to people who really have the problem.
I love that word, like evangelizing, because what I see is that you find the passion inside of it, and then you just can't shut up about it. It's something that just bubbles up through you.
I get up every morning from the .org side and just say, wow, we can really make a difference, make people aware of what's going on there.
Yeah.
But equally important, we have a responsibility to protect the kids. Like we've been offered really lucrative contracts to do things that I just don't want to sell kids. I mean, I don't want anything to do with vaping or some scary toy from some other country. So we pick and choose our clients, and we also make a difference. If we can't make a difference, then I don't want to do it.
All right. And I'm going to get there, but I want to know a little bit about your time at Sprint, because this is your first like corporate job after college. And they put you in charge of a $25 million client revenue base. And, they don't just hand that job out to everybody. And the reason that I'm asking this is because I know there's people listening right now who want to know how to sell themselves and have people feel confident in them. So what do you think it was about you? How did you sell yourself into that position?
The first couple of years, it's just success-based. Did you make the right contacts? Did you make the sales? I was a perennial President's Club winner. In fact, something called Best of the Best, top sales guy in the company. So there was clearly a standout there. And how do you do that? Well, you do that because as more of an entrepreneur than a sales guy, I would just get in the mind of the guy saying, less Schwab tired. And I spent more time talking about the shelf life of a shock or a disc brake, or what was we were talking about figuring out how to structure supply chain management. And if you just spend all this time talking about the cost or the lost opportunity of a shock sitting on a shelf or a tire sitting on a shelf, rather than, hey, this is what your rate is, it makes a big difference, right? So I think I was able to just tap into my normal self in the business world and relate to whatever the business was and really doing an in-depth analysis of what their problem was. So there's no secret to it. Find out what their problem was and then be upfront about how we could solve it. Yeah, and you got to spend the time knowing their business first. That's all.
And what you said right there is so important. Know what their problem is and solve it. But know what their problem is. That part of the statement means being uniquely interested in the other person. Yeah, and so interested, you put your own needs and thoughts and wants to the side and think like, what is going on for them? Talking about the things that they're most interested in, as opposed to what you just said, here's your plan or here's a better rate. Like that's what you're interested in. And that's, I teach sales training and I see I think is the number one mistake that people make is it's like, oh, I have this great thing I want to sell you. And you'll be so happy when you buy it. Like that's not finding out what their problem is. And is that something that you think is just in you, this unique curiosity about other people? Or is it something that you developed?
I think it's a little bit of both. I mean, certainly you could take sales classes. I wish people take more sales classes and really do that sort of flex to whoever the person is. But I want to know who they are and why they started their business and why is it so successful. And if I can understand that, I can have a conversation with somebody in even my world now. I'm lots of conversations with brands, but what is it that they're really trying to do? And what's the biggest problem? So it wasn't even, most of the time, it wasn't even the problem that they thought they were trying to solve. It turned out that it was a longer term issue. And again, that's only coming from conversations and sort of diving into their model.
And I think that is a component that's missing from the strategy I see of a lot of people's businesses. People get very focused on ROI and bottom line, and there is no ROI on building a relationship. You cannot chart that, but it is invaluable. And, I say this all the time. People buy from the people they like and trust. And what I hear you doing is generating a tremendous amount of likability and even a greater amount of trust. And
people want to buy from people that care about what they're doing. You're not doing all these typical sales things to earn their trust. No. You literally are just legitimately finding out what they want to do or what their problem is and how you can help solve it. And sometimes it's not a fit. I mean, I've actually had repeat business where I've literally said, this particular case, we're not a good fit. You should go talk to this guy. And that comes around tenfold. I don't know if you ever read The Go-Giver, but that's a great book to read. I recommend it.
So I'm going to skip ahead a bit. In 2011, you founded Knight Management in San Diego, and this is a business consulting and growth firm. And you developed this impressive list of clients and an even more impressive list of successes. And look, there's a million companies out there like yours, but most of them have nowhere near your success. What do you think you did in launching your business and running your business that most businesses don't do?
First of all, I didn't come up with some quick solution. I would always enter one of these agreements as saying, listen, I'm a second set of eyes. You bring me in, I'm just a second set of eyes that maybe has a little bit of a different look. And then probably equally important is to look at all the different aspects of the business, even the ones that they're not actually thinking about. I mean, there's some age-old sales versus product and product versus development and all that sort of stuff. And then to be able to frankly have that conversation saying, this is what I see is probably what's going on here. And so if you come at it from that approach, and then you have to have the skill set and the insight to figure out what the problem is. And I think, so it's great to get into this thing, but if you can't actually come up with an answer or solution, then that's not helpful. So to the extent that you can build a reputation saying, wow, this guy really took a look at my business. He looked at things that I wouldn't have, he asked questions that I didn't even think of. And he actually came up with some solutions that we didn't think of ourselves. And if that, again, that's going to grow based on reputation.
And so why do you think you've been so successful at coming up with solutions that people like?
I guess it's just the way that I'm wired. I'd like to solve problems, and I'd like to look at different models. And again, it's sort of a double-edged sword. I really get intrigued about what has or hasn't happened. One of the biggest problems people fall into is, if they're so passionate about something, they can't answer the question if their baby's really ugly, right? And if you can passionately and rationally explain that their baby is ugly and here's why, but hey, maybe there's a chance to if we go this direction, maybe that'll work. It is not necessarily, the features and functionalities may not be why they're not coming. It's because you're not solving a problem that nobody cares.
So you give people bad news, things that they don't want to hear.
Yeah, bad news, or maybe it's really good news because they're not going to go down the same path.
Okay. And let's talk about when things haven't worked out. When the advice that you've given hasn't worked out, or when a customer is like really unhappy. How do you kind of mentally prepare yourself for that meeting? And where are you emotionally in that space?
Well, I think the first goal of any relationship, I think you want them to walk away saying, wow, this guy did a great job. Right? And I think my mindset is that I sort of feel bad, depending on the issue, of course, but I feel bad that I wasn't able to help them. And they'll get that as a sincere feeling, because it is. And I'm sorry if I pointed you the wrong direction. I'm really sorry. I feel bad that I wasn't able to help you, because it's part of me, who I am. I mean, I was here to help. And so, yeah, I think it doesn't happen very often, but there are people that come back and they'll just say, hey, you just really missed the mark. And I went a different direction on something. And I'm super supportive of that. Great. Maybe, if there's some direction you want to go and you're looking for resources, let's go find them. You just stay in the supportive role. I've been fired by people who've come back and hired me.
I have too. That's always a good feeling.
Yeah.
And I think, and kind of what I'm reading between the lines here is you seem to do a good job of managing your thoughts and feelings about all of that. I don't think for you it becomes cataclysmic. Do you have a pretty good recovery time between like a down and then kind of getting level again?
Yeah, I would say that's a strength. I mean, I'm absolutely, I may be down for a day or two, but it doesn't help, right? I mean, you hang on to the lessons and you hang on to whatever you can take out of and try not to do that again, whatever that is. But it doesn't, it's like worrying about a test after you've taken it, right? Just not really going to help.
And that's the thing. I mean, how, like somebody comes to you and says, how do I separate myself from worry? What would you suggest?
I find that like the people that are really passionate about it don't. So it's really, you have to compartmentalize and you have to set goals and structures within your life that allow you to separate a little bit. So I think there's going to be a life balance conversation with these people, depending on what their life circumstances are. You need to take a vacation, you need to, whatever it is you need to do, and you need to set some time to step back.
Yeah. And it sounds like it's about where you put your focus. Right? If you have a failure in your business, like, okay, yes, that happened. It's tough, but what's your overall plan? Like, what's your vision? What are you bringing to the world? And it seems to me that you've done a really good job of keeping your mindset there.
Yeah. I mean, there's absolutely the individual block and tackle, but there's also a bigger picture piece that a lot of times people don't step back.
Yeah. And so let's jump into 2018. You're very successful with Knight Management. And my guess is you said to yourself, my life is way too easy. I'm going to crack the impossible to figure out youth market. And you launched Engaged Youth. Is that exactly what happened, Brehnen?
No. I had some experience with another agency, and I made a lot of mistakes. I hired way too many people. I had too big of a payroll. I had to put up with some really obnoxious clients because I needed a big payroll. So that was thing one, was I was not going to be too top heavy. And thing two was, if you're an agency, especially if you're a younger agency and you're trying to break into the market, it's really difficult unless you have some sort of specific skill set. And the youth marketing had always been interesting to me too. But if you think about it, you could create any kind of a niche marketing. It could be boomer marketing. I mean, we've had some internal discussions where I've kind of pointed people in the direction that maybe the next thing we do is boomer marketing, because again, it's the same concept. You have to communicate to these people authentically. And obviously the older generation is going to look at things different than the younger.
Yeah, but I think you're really downplaying this really amazing thing that you've done, because you look at the boomer market, their perspectives, likes and dislikes, wants, and the things that they don't want is going to be pretty stable. With the youth market, it is an ever-changing tapestry. And that's what you went for. So
yeah, that's just it. So it's not only, hey, we can help you right now with what you're solving your problem is, but more importantly, we can engage long-term as you grow and as your client base shifts and changes, that you'll still stay relevant and authentic to them. We've got a client who's focused on the 2028 Olympics. And again, they identify, rightly so, that the people that I can target for them or continue to have communications with them are the people that are actually going to buy the tickets in 2028. Mm-hmm. So they're already ahead of that. And I just applaud for that, because if you just let the youth go willy-nilly, then it won't ever, it's never lined up with the actual brand and the brand communication. So there's a dance there, but it's produced some really unique campaigns for us.
Is there anything that you can share or want to share that was a particular success that you're like, oh, wow, we really nailed that?
Let's see. Well, some of them I can't really, there's NDAs on the brands, but I can tell you that there was an organization started by a couple of famous people who were trying to protect children from predators. And they hired us to do a sub-brand that had to do with sending nudes over cell phones, because it's a problem. And then we did a marketing campaign for them that was literally a 2-month marketing campaign, and there were 37 million engagements. So it was trending more than all the stuff that's trending now. It was trending higher than those. And so, and here's the secret sauce there. Again, we involved the people that were doing that. And we were, you bring in the kids, you bring in the parents, you have like authentic conversations about what's going on and why and what you should do and shouldn't do. And it becomes really viral in the sense that it's triggering what people are thinking and talking about. You don't want to if you just grab an influencer who's got a bunch of followers and you try to get them to watch something that they don't care about, then some of them will watch it, but then it's not going to convert into anything that is relevant.
And I'm curious, what did you find when you did that? When you brought the kids and the parents in, what did you find?
Well, our whole thing wasn't to not send nudes, because you get into some legal issues about identifying those people that are doing that. What our whole thing was, if you receive one, what should you do? And our whole thing is, it's a cry for help. You should be supportive of that person, but you should absolutely not share that with anybody else, and and sort of figure out what's going on. So those are the dynamics and the questions that you develop, and you find that the parents and obviously especially the dads are going to be extremely mortified and be worried about it. But really the most authentic conversations were peer to peer, and why they done it, or had they done it, and what was the thought process, and hey, I really like this boy, or I really like this girl, so I thought I'd get the attention. You develop these really dynamic conversations, and then people listen to those, and then they have their own opinion, and they want to share it. And then it sort of brings out the people that were sort of having that problem in the past, and they want to be a part of it. So virality is really a measure of authenticity.
And what you said is so important, because I think what people forget about is just how deeply kids feel. That these, like right through puberty, these new feelings are popping up, and new thoughts. And there's a depth that they experience that they might not show on their face or talk about, because they might not yet have the words for it, but the feelings are there. And, you know, when you say things like, okay, what do I do to be supportive when I get a picture like this? And that feeling like, yeah, I really want to be supportive, but I don't know what to do. And I can see how that, again, you're solving a problem for the market who wants that solution.
Right.
If
it takes a while to get to that.
Yeah, you know? Because, I mean, that is the authenticity.
Right.
I really like what you said. You said a key to any successful entrepreneur is to leverage your strengths. And in a startup, there is not enough time to develop all the skills you need. So what is it about leveraging your strengths and the time that's so important to an entrepreneur in a startup?
I think that there's a couple of factors there. There's certainly financially. So you're going to start a new business or a product. There's only so many hours and there's so much time that you can spend on that before you see revenue as a return. We have a time limit on how we have to figure out, am I right? Is the problem I'm solving really a problem? Are the people who care? And if people care, and then there is, and then you can actually deliver, and then, oh my gosh, can this scale or not scale? These are all really important questions that you have to be honest about. And if you don't come in with some specific skill sets, like you were talking about earlier, where, if I'm going to go into a company and help them solve it, I have to be passionate about what their company's doing. Well, I have to be passionate about what I'm doing. And even if I am, is anybody else passionate about it? I have a good friend, smart as a whip. He was one of Steve Jobs' engineer guys when they first got started. And the guy's just wicked smart. Like, why are you talking to me smart? But he got so tied up in, creating an app. And if he added features and functionality to that app, that everybody would come and use it, that he didn't really spend the time realizing that nobody really cared. They could solve that problem by themselves. So the long and the short of it is, yes, you have to be passionate and you really want to be, successful at something. But if you don't have some core component of that already, then what you're doing is you're just managing people around you to be successful. And maybe that's your skill set. Maybe your skill set is that you actually can just bring people on that are really good at whatever that is, and then make sure they get it done. That's great. That's a skill. That's a really strong skill. I mean, you look at the billionaire guy that you were talking about. He developed a business that he didn't have anything to do with. But he had a lot of people that were passionate. He had a lot of people that were supporting him. And so maybe that was his biggest skill set, other than the fact that he understood how businesses work and how they structured and sort of the process to get things there. But by far, his biggest skill was being able to rally people who weren't getting paid and didn't understand what they were doing. Right?
Indeed, yeah. And I find that to be true. Like, it's not the loyalty that I get from people around me is not about how much I pay them, but about how much I inspire them. And I got to be at a 50 just to get them at a 10. And so I really want to get to Fanspiration, because to me, like, it's the same daredevil entrepreneur thing that you did with Engage Youth. Once again, you're trying to figure out something impossible and be successful at it. So what was your goal in creating Fanspiration?
So, I'm all about authenticity. And I really think that if you can understand the communication within your fan base and what they're talking about, not only within the fan base, but also with what they're talking about on all their other social networks, you get closer to this person and you can communicate them in a way that they will say, man, that star really gets me. Right? He really understands, or she really understands the passion behind what my issues are. And there's nothing but good that can come of that. Clearly, the fan can be a deeper and more loyal fan, and the artist can feel more connected to them. And there's just in and of itself, if you just do that and nothing else, I think you win the day. You're just connecting better with the people who already like you. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, that's just a win-win for everybody. How cool would it be if there's a whole bunch of people that followed, let's say, a television show, you could actually have them start writing some of the episodes of the thing just based on their communications. So there are lots of business applications to this, but it's fundamentally starting from just know your fan base a little bit better, and then we can figure it out from there.
And so let's say that you were taking for badass entrepreneurs only, right? You're taking this show, and I wanted to know more about what's truly interesting to my listeners. I mean, obviously it's entrepreneurship, but my guess is that what you're doing is you're looking for things that they're like truly passionate about on a soul level.
Yeah.
Well, how would you do that?
Well, they're not just talking within the fan base, right? They're talking amongst each other on other social networks. So they're on a Facebook group, or they're in their regular Facebook. They're on Instagram or Snapchat or wherever they are. And today's modern listening tools, you can see what's trending. You can figure out what's going on based on this specific finite group of people. You're starting with a finite group of people, and you're just trying to expand that to their friends and what their friends are talking about, and what their competition is talking about. Yeah, it's really easy if you're doing a fan, let's say on a football team, right? Because you know what their lifetime value is, right? Those things are pretty quick to get. But if you're somebody in the entertainment world, it's a little bit more nebulous, right? You have to figure out what's the benefit of having a passionate fan. Well, ask Kim Kardashian, right? I mean, she made $1 billion because she understood her base and what sort of cosmetics they would be buying. And I'm not saying that every entertainer in the world can make $1 billion, but they absolutely can understand their fan base and then make connections, both how they authentically communicate to them, and then also how brands may use them.
And so if we move this a little further, like you look at the show, are you looking at my social media interaction? Are you looking at the people who are connected? Are you looking at what they're interested in? Like how does the little investigation go?
Yeah, no, I mean, Big Brother's is sort of a scary thing, right? So we not only know what they're talking about within your fan base, we know what they're talking about on their social networks. We know what their median income is. We know how many times they travel and why. We know whether or not they leased a car in the last 6 months. And we can create a profile pretty quickly on that person. And then way more important, what are they talking about right now? What is it that's really interesting to them right now? You can absolutely figure out what's trending there, and you can set some percentage of, like 40% of them are talking about this. And so you'd want to do a show about that, right? And that's how you're going to get them and say, wow, he consistently is doing podcasts with people who are absolutely what I'm thinking about. We could actually just understand what's trending, and you could really resonate with the people, not only that are here, but again, it becomes a word of mouth marketing, right? You're literally going to say, your folks are going to go, dude, you got to listen to this guy. He's really on a lot of these things. And all of a sudden your base grows, right? So there's a million applications, but I think that would be the easiest one to explain for you.
So what I hear you saying is, it's like, the things that people say that they're interested in or are interested in, maybe there's something deeper.
You're trying to make an emotional connection. And if you know the types of people they communicate with and what their actions are, you can start painting a picture that's a little bit more in depth than just because he posted something and said something, right?
But there's the next step, because if you find out what people want, chances are they already have it. So, it's the old Henry Ford quote, if I gave everybody what they wanted, it would have been a faster horse. So he realized he was in the transportation business. People wanted to be transported quicker. So once you find out what they want, what's the next step?
Right. So yeah, everything we've talked about so far has been the logic behind what you do or what we do. Now you're getting into what makes me happy, which is, so what? It just drives me crazy when people come up with all these great numbers and everything. And it just, every time I listen to it, I say, so what? What does that really mean? And so again, we could find out everything about your fan base and who are they talking to, and outside in the world that you even imagine, and that you can just like, wow, really? I didn't know them. But again, so what? Well, the so what is, maybe we can take a database and grow it so large that you can then take it to a studio and a television group and say, hey, I'd like to turn this into a television program. And here are all the things that I want to talk about, right? So it's the so what part of it is super fascinating. And that's what floats my boat. That's what gets me excited.
So this is what I'm seeing throughout your entire life, Brehnen. It very much is the lemonade stand moment over and over and over again, wherein it's like, okay, there's this cooler thing I can do if I launch my own thing. And it's not just a matter of how much success can I have, but what's the cool new thing I can bring? It's not a faster horse. It's an automobile. It's not just an automobile. It's an assembly line to create them quicker. And so there's a few things that keep coming around in talking with you. Innovation, authenticity, emotional connection. I would say that those are like an orbit that I see you in. And I think that's a really big part of your success, because that's where people are connecting with you. That's where they're trusting you. That's where they like you. And inside of that, you have just an amazing insight to the so what and what's next. Because it's not enough, like you say, let me just pull all the data and show you this cool report. And here's where it is. It is what's next. And, you know, it's kind of funny because in a way, I'm back at the beginning of this interview, which is the question of how do you develop yourself as a great entrepreneur? And your answer is kind of still the same, which is you kind of got to have it. And I think what's really beautiful about what you've done is that not only did you have it, but you engaged it. Because there's a lot of people who have it that don't, that are working day jobs, that could be making a lot more money and a lot more fulfilled. And so here's my question to you. Somebody's listening to this and says, you know what? I'm looking around. The people I work with don't seem to have this thing that I do. They don't seem to understand the world in the way that I understand it. They're not as innovative and smart and creative. Boy, I think I really got something. How does that person break out of the world that they're in and find their lemonade stand moment and say, yes, I'm going to do this thing?
Well, I think we talked about it earlier, which is something that they are already already passionate about. So it's this, your worker person who is looking around and people don't get what they just don't get it. It is probably has probably already thought of other models, either similar to what they're doing in their work environment. Hey, there's a better way to do what I do. I work for UPS and there's a better way to create a new packaging company. Or it's something that they're just passionate about. You know, it may just be that they're huge with fly fishing and they realize that rods break when they get shipped. And you put those two businesses together, and all of a sudden they've come up with a better packaging solution for fly fishing rods. But it has to be, I think it has to be something that's clearly they know something about already. So there isn't just a direct path to success, but there is an evolution of a business, and you need to have some core business understanding of whatever it is you're evolving from, or you're just going to run out of time.
And I think it is understanding your core abilities. Because I find a lot of businesses, new businesses, they just run out of money. I mean, it's not that they don't have a great idea and everything isn't in place, but they don't move quick enough. They don't pivot quick enough. Or
they grow too fast. It's as dangerous to grow too fast and run out of the ability to pay for that scalability as it is to run out of initial money. You need to be aware of both of them.
Yeah. So last question, what would you consider your personal superpower?
Authentically interested in different models, different ways to do things. I'm intrigued by things where people have come up with some idea of a model that I hadn't thought of. I'm a big fan of not necessarily following all these people, but definitely, you know, find people that resonate with you. Find people that you know, the Tony Robbins of the world or whoever it is that really you like to listen to, or you feel like they make a lot of sense, because you've got to be self-driven and you have to have a lot of moxie or self-drive, but you have to have that ability to see what other people are doing and respect it and frankly take some of what they're doing into what your model is. I think don't be so arrogant that you can't learn every day. That's interesting. And I would add to that curiosity. You know, like you have this rampant curiosity, and I would guess that you are less concerned about asking too many questions than asking too few. Most people that are successful most people want to share. Yes. Wow. It's just fascinating that you were able to figure that piece out. And I really appreciate spending the time with you. Kind of conversations, they go a long way. They really do. You learn a lot from that. Well, Brehnen has generously offered to all of you, to my listeners, a free ebook detailing the blueprint that Engage Youth use and created for reaching the youth market. So if you want to get young people on board and do the kinds of things that Brehnen has been talking about, and you don't want to pay Brehnen thousands and thousands of dollars, you can just download his book for free and do most of it yourself. And to get that book, just text the word ENGAGE, ENGAGE. Text the word ENGAGE to this number, 213-409-8366. Text ENGAGE to 213-409-8366 and get his blueprint. And you can also get my book,
which will help you in taking action on your own entrepreneurial dreams. It's called Jumping the Gap. Kill your story and take action. Just text the word GAP to that same number, 213-409-8366. That's GAP, G-A-P, and engage to get Brennen's book as well. Brehnen, thank you so much for being so incredibly generous with your time. I think we learned a lot about authenticity, about the value of authenticity, about emotional connection, and about being so passionate about what you're doing with your customers and with your audience that they just can't help themselves but feel connected.
Well, I really I appreciate the opportunity, and I'm intrigued to follow your success, because I think what you're doing is very interesting, and I think that anybody that can, that wants to get knowledge on how to be a startup entrepreneur, or I just think what you're doing is a really good service. So I appreciate it also.
Thank you. Thank you. That means a lot. Wow. And before we wrap up, I want to remind you to get a free copy of my book, Jumping the Gap, Kill Your Story and Take Action. Just text the word GAP, G-A-P, to 213-409-8366. It will help you take bold new action on your entrepreneurial journey. Text the word GAP, G-A-P, to 213-409-8366. And I also want to thank you. Yeah, you. The you who is listening to this show right now. Thank you for opening your mind and stepping into the world of infinite possibilities. My guests, all of them, breathe the same air you do. There's nothing stopping you from taking bold action, opening up your world, challenging yourself to step up and live your life unlimited. I'm Coach Dan Gordon. Thanks for listening. Now get out there and show the world the next greatest version of you. Hey, if you have some thoughts about the show you'd like to share with us, or if you think you've got what it takes to be a guest, send me a text at 213-409-8366. Let me know what you think, or let me know why you think you'd be a great guest for this show. Thanks again for listening. I hope you're inspired to unleash your badass self on the world.